All right. Next up, we have a panel, and this one's a pretty awesome panel, in my opinion. This is the Women in Tech panel, Navigating the Sector and Breaking Barriers. So I want my panelists to join me up front here, and we'll get started with that. All right, so thank you all for coming here. I'll go one by one and give a brief introduction, your name and who and what you are and what you do.
Right, so I'm Jade and I am a Principal Specialist in Security, Risk and Assurance at Aviva. I've literally just been there, this is my second week. But big massive advocate for DIB, do a lot of work with the LGBT community and women in tech.
I'm Niamh. I am the CTO at Hurree. Quick background, I was electrical and electronic engineering and kind of took a bit of a sideways step into software, which I think seems to be most people's way into software. Went into mobile development, worked in Android for a long time and then moved into management.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Janine. I am VP of Engineering and Site Lead for our Belfast office. I work for Mintel, an research and intelligence company. I lead all the engineering and architecture teams across Mintel. Background, I was a software engineer, went through the usual into tech lead positions and then into leadership. I'm a big advocate for women in tech, part of the Women Tech Makers Committee in Belfast as well.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you three for being a part of this panel. First, I want to acknowledge my privilege in being here. Again, if we're talking about women in tech and understanding that this industry has been heavily biased or heavily balanced towards folks of my gender, for example. And I wanted to just put that out there by way of acknowledgement. I think it's an honor for someone like myself to be able to talk with you and get your real opinions and your real thoughts and feelings about this industry, which tends to be overbalanced and overbiased. So let's begin with a real basic question here. So in essence, the tech industry has made progress towards gender equity, but there's a lot of gaps that still remain. So how would you each describe the current landscape for women in tech from your individual perspectives? And we'll start with you.
I think, we're definitely making progress, right? And like recently I was up at an event in Belfast for Empower Girls to get young girls into tech careers, but there's still a massive gap. You know, like I've been in the tech industry since I left school, and more often than not, I'm still the only woman in some meetings. I see a bit of a change recently with how the conversation is going. It's not more, how do we get women promoted? There's more conversations going around about like, how did we get to this point to begin with? Like, where did these gender inequalities come from? And kind of guiding the conversation like that. And I think more things like that need to happen to make those very basic improvements that were implemented years and years and years ago.
Yeah, I think the industry is improving, but I totally agree. I think there's still massive gaps. I think it's very uneven, kind of depending on where you are within that industry. Like if I kind of go back to the start of my career, I did electrical and electronic engineering. There was 70 of us in our course. I was one of 5 girls. That was a tiny, tiny number. And I definitely at times was the only woman in the room or the only woman in an engineering team, which is, a scary place to be, I think, at times. I think what is good, like companies are talking about it now. There's the awareness about inclusivity and we are definitely seeing more women moving into leadership roles and I agree, like we are. I don't think it's an issue with pipeline. I think it's about retention. Like we're seeing girls come in, but we're not seeing women stay. We're not seeing women stay enough to become leaders. And I think we need to try to work on how to build an environment where they can stay and can thrive. But I think what is good and what is definitely bringing awareness is we're able to have conversations like this. Like we're able to talk about it openly and honestly and move towards hopefully building a place where women can stay and thrive.
Yeah, I totally agree with what both of you said. I think if you look at this conference, there's so many women speakers and everything. It's an amazing balance, but there definitely is still gaps. When I started at Mintel, there was in Belfast, there was an opportunity to really like look at that gender balance and everything and create awareness and everything like that. But I think it depends on the company, depends on the leaders, and that there's still a massive gap. When you do walk into rooms and there's maybe only a couple of females in the room, but also we're seeing it from a CV point of view as well. You know, there's massive, you know, there's maybe like a 20%, 80% ratio of, you know, women applying for those tech roles.
So is it more than just lip service then? Is it more than just these programs that are designed to bring women into tech or women into STEM or STEM adjacent kind of fields of study? Is there anything that you see being done to encourage, you know, encourage that?
I think it's both. I think there's actionable things, but also a lot of talk happening. You know, like we are seeing real progress in, you know, what companies are doing to try to make that more inclusive. We're seeing women move into leadership. We're seeing flexible working cultures. There's an awareness now to like the unconscious biases that kind of went unnoticed a lot before. I think that awareness is good, but I do think there's still a lot of talk happening. We're kind of hearing these grand ideas and initiatives that sound really good on paper, but don't really translate into lived experiences. And I think it's about what's happening in the real day to day, like who's being interrupted, who's being overspoken, who isn't getting the opportunities, who's being left out of conversations they should be in. It's those sort of everyday decisions that are accumulating into us not progressing further.
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of a perception gap, right? A lot of men seem to think that they're kind of better allies, or there's more that is being done that actually isn't. But I think like a big problem that we have is like we set up all these women in tech groups, and the aim of those groups is to like bridge that gap, but we're not seeing any men in the room, and I don't think it's necessarily on men 100% of the time. Like whenever I've had conversations with people, it's like, well, I didn't feel invited to that because it's branded as women in tech. But to close that gap, like men have such power and influence in the tech industry, we need all those voices. And maybe it is a case that we have to start, you know, making sure that they really know that they're invited, they're not going to be judged, they're not going to be attacked, but that it's one collective, all working towards the same cause.
Yeah, it is about that allyship, I can't speak, and that as well. You know, as you say, there's a lot of women in tech groups, there's a lot of support for women out there, but it is getting that allyship in the room as well. Is the key to making things happen. Yeah.
I do think there is a tendency from the tech companies that I've worked in over almost 2 decades now to cordon off a little section. You can go over there and you can talk about your issues. We'll let you be. And then you come back to us and sort of try to feed back into a system that's inherently broken because we've already segregated you out. We've already created, carved off this enclave, right? And how are you supposed to function in that system and be contributory and kind of participate and then grow, which is kind of where the next question is going. How do you grow in a system that's already cordoned you off, right? And I think you brought that up, Niamh, where, how does that promotion, what does that promotion look like? And maybe color it from your own experience, right? How did you grow into your various positions of authority and I'll say it as power, but your positions within your various enterprises, and any of you can talk to that. Sure.
Yeah, I have been really, really lucky in my career. Like, I have had some fantastic mentors and leaders, and the majority of them have been men. Being in the tech industry, that's not a shocker, but I think, and one thing that I was always taught from very on in my career was to document everything, right? So whenever you're going then for your year-end reviews or your performance reviews or whatever, it's really hard to argument with evidence that you have delivered or achieved something. I also think there's something to be said for being vulnerable, and the chances are that if you're in a room and there's something happening and you're confused and you don't really understand what's going on, you're not going to be the only person, but you might be the only person that's willing to ask the question. And it takes away a lot of the chance of making more mistakes if you are open enough to just say, look, hold on a minute, I don't really understand what's going on here, or I need a wee bit more guidance. I think that vulnerability can be powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I think I have also been really blessed with the colleagues and mentors I've had across all genders. I've had a really supportive career. I think, yes, there's definitely been some standout moments where my gender was definitely an issue, but I think on the whole of it, it does come down to those kind of small moments. I think in terms of how I've gotten to where I am and kind of maybe not necessarily a strategy, but what I kind of stuck to was sort of one of two things. It was focusing on the tech, it was focusing on my craft, it was focusing on what I was in to do. Like I'm an engineer at heart, and I need to work out how things are built and how to fix them and how to solve them, and I focused on that, and I think that maybe gave me my quiet confidence to kind of say it actually doesn't matter who's in the room. It's kind of independent of that. I know what I'm talking about, and I'm confident in that space. And then I think kind of going back to the fact I've had this, it's kind of hard to say to people, oh, get yourself a really good leader and get yourself a great team. Like it's hard to do that because and there isn't one solution that fits everybody. Everybody is so unique. Everybody works completely differently. Like even from a leader, when I'm working with my team, like, you know, they all learn differently, they communicate differently, and I think it's respecting that and working with them as opposed to them working with me. But I think trying to, surround yourself in an environment that you know you're going to thrive in. If it's not for you, walk away from it. You know, the tech world is a really cool place to be at the minute. There's lots of opportunities, especially in Northern Ireland. So I think, find an environment that you know you're going to thrive in, and you know people are going to help you and promote you and give you that space to grow.
I suppose leading on from that, I didn't maybe have a great experience going into leadership roles and things like that, but it is true, walk away from the environments that don't work for you, and that's one piece of advice I'd give everyone. But I think it's also looking at those opportunities and creating those opportunities yourself, so it is building up your networks and your allyship as well to grow your own network and also, you know, make those opportunities for yourself. And I think you touched on it too there, Jade, about, you know, having those outcomes, but maybe talking to someone about what you are actually doing, because I think as women, we kind of bury what we're doing. It's just, well, you know, we get on with it, we don't shout about it. And I think it's really calling that out as well, and maybe having a mentor or someone that, you know, is really calling out you know, those how impactful you are. And I think I have a leadership coach who always says to me, don't bury the lead. And I think we have a tendency to do that sometimes. We're not shouting enough about what we do.
Yeah, to go back to something you said, Jade, you talked about documenting everything. Do you feel like that's an unnecessary burden?
Yeah, you know, you shouldn't really have to, like, if your leader or your manager is doing their job, I suppose, like, it doesn't really matter what your gender is or, you know, what your background is. It should be quite evident what you're doing in comparison to somebody else. So, yeah, it can be an unnecessary burden, but it does work.
Yeah,
I think it's an expectation, like, of us having to maybe do that wee bit more to prove our value. It's, you know, we can be underestimated, we can be undermined, and you almost have to do that extra bit of proof to show that. And yeah, I don't think it's something everyone has to do.
Yeah, it's kind of a telling sign. I think, yeah, because it struck me. You know, I've managed women in the workplace and within tech as well, and I think there is that perception that, you know, they suddenly have to justify themselves that much more in order to achieve the exact same outcome from somebody that, you know, like another male on their team or whatnot. And it's one of those things you don't consider necessarily, but, you know, you've stated it quite clearly, and I think we know it from not only just from common sense and what we go through, but when we look at the challenges that you faced individually inside of your organizations as you're growing up, I mean, Niamh, you talked about going from, you know, I think even in your profile, going from an Android dev to now CTO. What were some of those challenges that you faced as you tried to kind of highlight your role and responsibility, maybe taking a cue off of Jade's comment where you had to overstate maybe some of the things you did in order to achieve your end?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been, like, if I kind of took a step back and thought about my career, there's definitely been a few, like a handful of really obvious moments that my gender played into it. But I think it is the smaller everyday things that I've noticed. Like, and to be honest, probably one of the challenges was something I was doing to myself that I noticed, which was before I contributed to a conversation, I apologized. I said, sorry, do you mind if sorry, but. And that was me doing that. Like, I was my own challenge there, and that was something I kind of had to take a step back, and I was aware I was doing it and nip that in the bud, because I was putting myself down before I was giving anyone else the opportunity to do that.
Anybody else?
I'll never forget interviewing for a role one time, and it was for like on-site field support. And during the interview, the hiring manager asked me would I be fit for the job, basically because I was a female. And I remember thinking, like, what on earth do you want? At the time, it probably should have been a HR matter. I didn't take it that far, but it gave me the the fire to kind of go harder at like the woman in tech stuff, because I couldn't believe that it was said, and it was said like so blasé, as if like it was nothing. And I would have been more than capable. But it was just like, I couldn't believe that this was still happening now. Like, this was very, very early on in my career. Now I think I would, have the guts to go and kind of report that. But, these things still are happening, and it's hard. And it's sometimes devastating, like, whenever you realise that it's just said so off the cuff.
Yeah, I think one of my defining moments, I used to work for a big corporate, and the boardroom was a sea of grey and suits, and walking into that, and I was presenting, but the questions were never directed at me. They were always directed to my VP beside me, and it was patience. It was him being my ally, redirecting questions to me that helped. But I think that was a defining moment, maybe the fourth time in, then questions were, started to be directed, but, it shouldn't have to be that hard.
Yeah.
So we've talked about kind of the, in this current kind of, I won't call it a bubble, because we're not allowed to call it a bubble right now. But when we look at the things like artificial intelligence, right, and the jobs and opportunities that have arisen for this, and we kind of step into that space, how do you approach that as a woman, as somebody that may or may not be disadvantaged from the onset? What are you doing to advocate for yourself in those processes? How do you get your resume or your CV evaluated appropriately? How do you go through those conversations where inappropriate things are being said? So how do you challenge that kind of status quo, and any tips or tricks or otherwise for that?
Yeah, I think it's already been mentioned, like your network is a massive thing. As I said, like I have been really, really lucky to have such good mentors and allies and leaders in my career. Mentorship programs are fantastic. I was very lucky to sit as both a mentee and a mentor on what was the woman-led mentor program, and I got paired with a fantastic woman. She had a PhD, and I was just like, what am I going to teach this woman? Like, why are you pairing me with her? She's a doctor, I haven't a clue. And what she needed was help with socializing. She was working remote. She wanted to get out of the house more. She wanted to build her self-confidence. And I think it's like looking for, like, you don't necessarily have to have a mentor in your same space. Think about what it is that you want to achieve. If it's your public speaking, if it is your confidence, if it's your technical skills, build your network and look for people that can help you, because there are people out there that will be absolutely 100% wrong.
I think advocating for myself has been a bit of a journey, which is ironic because in work I have a bit of a reputation for being a diehard for my engineering team. I will defend them till I am blue in the face, because I can see what they're doing, I can see what they're contributing, I see the progress they're making, I see the work they put in, I know the gaps we would have if we lost them. So I find it really easy to advocate for my team. I think I'm my own harshest critic. I think as women we tend to be. I've been incredibly lucky, like yourself, to have mentors that probably throughout the majority of my career did that recognition for me, which worked to a point. But I think once you step into leadership, you kind of need to be your own person in your own corner, shouting for yourself. So I think I've realized you kind of need to, it almost kind of comes back to your notes, you almost need to remember the impact you're making. You need to have those defining moments to almost convince yourself that you're doing right, to then convince your manager you're doing right. It's something I'm trying to do. I'm trying to pivot into being more of an advocate for myself and trying to lead a healthy self-advocate for what I'm doing, so that my team know that it's the right thing for them to do as well.
Yeah, a lot of what I would say has been mentioned, but I think it's creating that environment for your teams as well, that safe environment, and as a leader as well, you'd mentioned it before, nipping things in the bud straight away if there is bad behaviour patterns and things like that. And build your network. I always say that as well. Have those people around you that can support you, and as you say, it doesn't have to be in the same industry or the same field. It's really learning from others as well.
I'm going to go right back to you, Janine. How do you build teams that thrive? Given everything that's in here, that we've talked about, how do you elevate that?
Yeah, so it's something I'm really passionate about is making that safe environment, making it safe. I know it sounds cliche, but for people to fail and, just get on with it then, they learn from the mistakes. So building that environment, but building a rewarding environment as well. It's those simple thank yous. It doesn't have to be monetary. It's, recognizing people. As you said, it's trying to keep people as well. So, growing their skills, having an environment where they can grow the skills, but, again, not monetary, having a bit of money budget behind that, but also given the time, because I think we can all pay lip service, we all have budgets and all the rest of it, but the teams need the time to learn and grow as well. So it's making that time as well and more around the environment.
Yeah, I think for me, it's trying to build an environment where everyone feels psychologically safe. Like that's across all genders of all types. It's knowing that it's a safe place for, like I have a rule of thumb, there are no stupid questions. I would much rather you took 2 minutes of my time or anyone's time to ask the question as opposed to banging your head against the laptop for 2 days thinking I should know this. We can't know everything. We're meant to kind of bounce ideas off each other. So I think building an environment where everyone's ideas and contributions count, everyone's valued, and that one idea that someone, maybe not necessarily in your team or, in a different team or a different sector, not necessarily working on an issue, they might have the key to the problem you're solving. So I think it's building an environment where everyone feels safe that they can throw their hat in the ring and speak up for themselves.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think that kind of safety, that transparency and honesty within your team, and knowing that your leader or your team members are going to vouch for you in a room that you're not in. Nobody's being thrown under the bus, and just having that safety net within your own environment.
So as folks come out of secondary school and through collegiate programs and graduate and start to look at the workforce, right? What are some of the things, or what are some of the recommendations or processes or procedures? I know you talked about mentorship at one point, and we obviously have Mary McKenna and the Waken Hub, and a lot of the work that's been done around some of these female-led startups and entrepreneurship. Jennifer Neff, who is around here somewhere, has done a great job with this type of thing too. But what are some of the recommendations that you would have as women want to either kind of shift focus, going away from maybe another career into technology, or are wanting to just kind of go down the education path and join technology? What are some of the recommendations that you have, any of you?
I think stay curious.
Yeah.
Tech is constantly changing and you do not need to know everything. I think that's something as women we think, I can't do that because I've never learned that specific tech. As long as you're willing to learn, stay curious. Like some of the most incredible engineers I've ever worked with didn't come from traditional backgrounds. They were just relentlessly curious about tech, and they were so passionate about making sure that they built the most perfect solution. And I think if you've got that passion and that ability to learn, then stay at it. And then I think it comes back to keep in a good environment and a good network of people as well around you.
Yeah, and I think things like today, Alistair's done a fantastic job bringing us today. We don't have the same kind of meetups and events that Belfast do. Today we are launching our Northwest Tech meetup group. There should be QR codes about for people who are interested. But I think it's really that, as you say, that curiosity. But if there is those meetups, there's those events, go, because there's a misconception as well that tech is just sitting behind a desk with a hoodie on and you're just coding all day, or you're looking at events all day. There are so many careers in tech that I don't even think people that know that are there, and there are ones coming that don't even exist yet. As you said, it's ever evolving, and I think just keeping those networks, and I know I keep rambling on about networks, but it's so important because there's stuff that you just won't read online until you get talking to somebody in a setting like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that about building network, and those meetups. They're just they're so rich with people from the different industries and that as well, and then recruitment as well. Opportunities to talk about different careers and that as well. So I think from a career point of view as well, my advice would be try it. There's so many different paths we talked about in tech. So try it. If you don't like it, you can move on to something else as well, and keep that curiosity going as well. That's one thing. And again, build your network.
I know from of kind of my history, coming up through psychology and sociology, and now I'm in tech and doing some things like that. Yeah, your career paths are different now. We heard from the Minecraft, panel that was just there. Like there's a sociological story that sits behind this. There's an education story. You may not think it certainly harnesses the AI primitives, if you will, or some of the black box stuff. But what we look as hard tech isn't so hard anymore. It's now bleeding into the edges in different fields and very interdisciplinary, as it were. And there's lots of opportunity, I think, that you all echoed, to bring in some of these themes, your stories into these moments that have been, kind of pilloried or, set up in very, 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 very hard, rigid kind of ways. So as we kind of wind up here, like, what if you could change, I'm sure there's many things that you'd want to change about the industry, but if you could change one thing, let's limit it to one, what would be one thing you would change about the industry to make it more inclusive and for women, but yes, kind of as a broader shade of inclusivity,
Yeah, like as I said, I've worked quite heavily with the LGBT community as well, and like the disability networks and stuff like that. I think allyship is such an important thing, right? And we talk about like unconscious bias, but unless you're following that through with allyship, it's all talk, it's no action, right? And like there was a study done that shows that if people attend like allyship workshops or whatever, they're 2 to 3 times more likely then to recognise when something is happening and to speak out about it and try and change that path. And I would just like to see more kind of those allyship programs, more men at women in tech events, and generally just across all of like inclusivity, disability, LGBT, like all of those things. Just see more drive, and especially here, as I said, like in the Northwest, we don't really have any meetups yet, so that would be the intention of our tech meetup, would be to eventually get that stage where we're doing those kind of DEIB events as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying there. I think inclusivity isn't one task, there isn't one solution that fixes this. I think it's the accumulation of multiple everyday behaviours and situations, and it is those unconscious bias. It's who's being interrupted in a meeting, when you walk into a room, who are they looking at when they ask the question? Because I've been there as well. Like it's who's getting the opportunities, who's getting the coaching they need. It's addressing those on a small everyday matter is what is building to this bigger issue, this systemic issue we have. Like I don't think it's an issue with getting women in the door. It's keeping women in and giving them a place that they can then move into a leadership role. Like that's the thing we're missing. Like we don't have an issue with pipeline, it's retention. And I think you're right. It's those meetups, that networking, that becoming aware of those unconscious biases. Like so many people do not realize they're doing it. It's the total definition of unconscious bias, isn't it? But yeah, I think focusing on that, and yeah, I think that will work.
For me, it's the education piece. I was listening to the Minecraft there, and it would be so cool to get that in skills. My daughter's doing architecture now at uni, and it was because of Minecraft that she wanted to do it. So I think if we can get that in early, and it helps with the maths, it helps with building applications and everything as well. So it is that definitely in the schools early. I live up in Donegal. The primary school there, they were doing Word and Excel as like computing, that's not the case. They should be looking at logic and things like that. So it's getting in the door early and for everyone, not just girls.
I think to add to that as well, like there was so many like women in tech programs I was involved with, but it was when women are already at university. And I think that is the bigger issue. Like so many people don't know that you need maths GCSE in order to then apply or maths A-level, to then apply for UCAS in engineering roles. Like that is a decision that people make when they're 14. Like we need to be educating people way younger about what is out there. And I think so many of those things are, oh, you're right, I'm going to be a nerdy little hoodie on in the dark sitting here. And it's not about that. It is educating them from such a young age that there's so much more out there. And it's so easy to put yourself in a box really, really early. And I think bringing that awareness to kids and through something they're going to enjoy is definitely a cool opportunity.
Yeah, I think there definitely is an education piece in there. I know obviously come from North America, where the education system is a little bit, say, a little less deterministic in terms of where you pick your path along the way, right? We go into undergrad, we go into bachelor's level, and we have a lot of flexibility around that. You choose your school, and your school doesn't choose you, kind of thing, and you don't have to be 18 and understanding that you have to do all these things, or 17 or whatever. I think there is a little bit of flexibility. That's a longer conversation that we can have about that. Just to wrap things up, any kind of last statements or comments that you want to make about about this subject matter, or anything that you wish to impart to our audience here?
I just want to say, like, and I've probably said it about 4 or 5 times now, like, I have had some of the best male advocates ever, like, and I really appreciate them, and I really wouldn't be where I am without them. But I really want to see more men at these women in tech groups. You know, as I said, like, they're very influential, they're very powerful in the tech industry, and we can't make change without them.
Yeah, I'm going to double down on the find environment and find your leader. I think, you know, I've worked with so many incredible leaders and mentors throughout my career, and, you know, I think at times people move into a leadership role and perhaps mirror the managing style of who they had before. It was what they knew, it was what they learned, and I don't always think that's the most effective approach. I think from my side, I tried to lead the way I would have wanted to be managed, not the manager I had. And I think, yeah, find someone that's in your corner, find someone that's going to be your advocate. That does not need to be your direct manager. That can be someone in a different team. That can be a colleague on the same level. That can be a colleague that's on a completely different company. You know, it's just finding someone that you can resonate with and bounce ideas off. I think is invaluable.
Don't try to fit yourself into a box. You know, everybody's individual. That's why diversity is so important. And you know, ideas and that, don't ever think that they're silly. You know, go with your ideas. And then also build, I always say it, build your network as well. And also look for a company where you really appreciate their values and their culture as well. You don't have to stay in a toxic environment.
Well, Jade, Niamh, and Janine, thank you very, very much for this. It's certainly been enlightening for myself, and hopefully for the rest of you as well. I mean, these are conversations that we have to have more of. I mean, as Jade said, you know, being in this seat and being able, you know, to have the privilege that I've had through tech has also led me to incredible people that, you know, we take for granted. And it's been, you know, something that I'd love to apologize for on behalf of a lot of really shitty men, to be fair. You gotta say it. For the way that we've kind of controlled the narrative and controlled these environments, and it doesn't take much. I think a lot of what you said, it does not take much to take that step, to participate, to align ourselves with, you know, incredible people, right? And let's just leave it at that. It's incredible people, regardless of gender, regardless of religion, creed, whatever race, as it goes through there. So I want to thank you for your comments and perspective on this. It's like, again, it's been great, and I hope you all have heard something in this that you can take back to your companies, to your perspective, and change a little bit of your narrative in the way that you approach these scenarios. So thank you very much.
Thank you.